right, welcome to another episode of First Down by CoachTools. Today I'm here with Coach Jeff Gordon. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
Thank you for having me.
So Coach Gordon is a retired offense coordinator who's spent time at many different schools, including Springfield College. So to kind of kick things off, Coach, can you just share with the audience a little bit about your background and how your career ultimately turned out?
Okay, so I'm actually still coaching. I've taken a step back here and there, but I'm a retired state trooper. For the first half of my career, I was still working as a trooper, so I couldn't coach in college like I kind of wanted to. I started out as a youth coach, spent a couple of years doing that, and then moved up to high school at various schools. One of them being Westfield High School. I was there for about 10 years. I was an offensive coordinator there, ran the triple option, and I've attempted to work the triple option in every school I've ever been at. The next school I was at was an air raid team, and the head coach was not so open to the triple option, but I did get some option principles in there. And then I moved on to Springfield College. I was there for 2 years. The first year I was there was in 2017, was one of the best years I've ever been a part of. We led the nation in rushing. I think it was like 426 yards per game. We won a NUMAC title in the first year of the NUMAC conference, and went to the NCAA playoffs. It was just an incredible experience. So I was there for a few seasons. Then I moved on to Springfield Central, which is a powerhouse program here in Massachusetts, and won a state title there, went to another state title and lost, unfortunately. And then I spent spring ball at a program called American International College here in Springfield. The head coach who got hired there is a Springfield alum. His name's Lou Conti, amazing coach, had been the offensive coordinator at the Citadel, triple option guy through and through. And I was there for spring ball, and he's the head coach, and he decided he wasn't going to run the triple because he had too much, he wanted to be the head coach, not the coordinator. So no triple for me. At the end of spring ball, I got approached by a guy I had coached at Westfield, one of my first years there, and name's Coach Raymond, and he asked me to come run his offense, be his offense coordinator. And I thought about it for a minute, and we'd spoken earlier off camera. I told you that I thought when I left Westfield as a coordinator, I'd just hop right into another coordinator role. Well, as things often go, it was a good 12 years or so. And I'd been meaning to get back there to be a coordinator, and I couldn't say no, so I took it. And we had, not a great year this year. The program's down. It's the reason he's hiring another coordinator. And it was some injuries, and it was a rough year. Although I never regretted it. I had a lot of fun installing the offense, running the triple again. And so that's where I'm at now. It's a school called Chicopee Comprehensive High School in Chicopee, Massachusetts. Probably about 1,100 kids in the school. But it's a comprehensive school, so it's kind of half voc, half college prep kids. So it's not, as far as fitting in with the other schools around here, it's not quite, football isn't quite as important as at some other schools around here. So right now we're just trying to get the program back on its feet, and I think by next year we'll be okay.
Gotcha. And I misunderstood you in the beginning. I thought at first you said you were retired, but yeah, very cool that you're still in the game. And what are some of the advice that you would have for maybe the coaches out there that are trying to run the triple option? Because obviously you've done it for a long time now.
In general, for coaches, my advice would be coach anything. Don't be that guy that's like, I'm an O-line coach. This is what I do. I've coached every position on the field. I learned that lesson almost the hard way when I was at Westfield. The guy I was coaching with was an amazing coach, taught me everything I knew. His name's Bill Moore, had been a coach at Springfield College, O-line coach, Coach John Cena. He was his position coach back in the day, for anyone who knows Springfield College. Wow. And he needed a defensive backs coach. And I played O-line in high school. I know I don't look like it. I was a lot bigger. And I didn't know the first thing about defensive backs. And he said, I need a DBs coach. You want to do it? And I said, no, I don't know DBs. I coach D-line and O-line. That's all I knew because that's what I played. And he said, all right, fine. I'm gonna have to hire somebody to come in. I don't know, something about me, the competitiveness was like, no, that's not happening. I'm going to do it. So I spent the whole off season going to clinics and reading books and videos and everything I could do to teach myself about defensive line play, or excuse me, defensive back play, and started coaching DBs, coached DBs in total for well over probably 10 years or so. I'm still coaching DBs a bit now, even though I'm the offensive coordinator. So it taught me, obviously, as an offensive coordinator, I learned coverages, shells, secondary principles, rules, and it taught me a lot about offense. I've coached outside linebackers. I've coached, I'm coaching quarterbacks now, which is the first year I coach quarterbacks. And again, it was the same thing. The head coach said, you're going to be the coordinator. You're going to have to coach. You want to coach quarterbacks? And I said, I don't really know much about quarterbacks. And he's like, well, then I have to bring somebody in. Now I got it. So same thing, trying to teach myself how to coach quarterbacks. So if you want to develop, if you want to stay in the game, if you want to be a guy that is relied upon on your team, you just got to say yes, I guess is the answer. Yes to everything.
Yeah.
Don't be the DB's coach. Don't be the O-line coach. For the bulk of my career, I've coached running backs and defensive backs. But I coached offensive line for a year with the head coach at Springfield College. I coached running backs there for a year. I've bounced around because it's fun to learn a new position. As hard as it is, as much as you feel kind of like a fish out of water, it teaches you a lot. And you can obviously, the interplay between the positions, you can learn so much about being a coordinator on the offensive side of the ball from coaching defense. So the 2 years I was at Springfield Central, I was a special teams coordinator, and I coached outside linebackers and kind of consulted with the defensive coordinator, who's his name's Eric Panassi. I coached with him at Minichog before. He's one of the best coaches I've ever met at any level. Extremely knowledgeable. Taught me a lot about being a coordinator from coaching with him, watching the way he does his business, and being on the side of the ball, talking to him and learning how he looks at an offense taught me a lot about how I should attack a defense. And I think my experience on offense helped him. He bounced stuff off me. Like, well, we played a team named Zavarian that's year in and year out a powerhouse in Massachusetts. Matt Hasselbeck, Tim Hasselbeck went there. There's a player there named Henry Hasselbeck, who's a senior, just won the state championship, and he was going to Michigan State on a ride. I don't know where he's going now, but he's a really good player. And Matt and Tim both played years and years in the NFL. So I kind of, they do run the triple option, not a ton, but they run it enough. So he'd bounce stuff off me. Hey, how do I attack this? How do I stop this? So I think I know some guys that are coaches that say, I coach defense. I don't like offense. I coach offense. I don't like defense. You're really hurting yourself, and you're kind of leaving a big hole in your career where you really could learn a lot.
Definitely.
So that's my general advice to coaches. Just say yes.
Yeah.
And you specifically, as far as the triple option goes, there's a lot of guys that learn the wing T, the triple option, the single wing, whatever it is, from books, from clinics. And that's all well and good, but there's something different when you learn it from a guy who's a triple option guy, a wing T guy. There's little intricacies of the triple option that I never would pick up from a book. The way to how the fullback path goes, the fullback's rules when he gets a football, the fullback's rules when he doesn't get the football. There's just these little coaching points that I learned from being with a triple option guy that I don't think I would get from any kind of book. So I guess my advice would be, if you're going to run an offense, first of all, coach what you know. Everyone tells you that, coach what you know. But if you can get a chance to even go to spring ball at a school like Springfield College that runs a triple very well, or someone that runs a wing T, or whatever it is you're trying to do, and just sit in the back of the room, absorb meetings, whatever you can do, you'll be so much better. I think some guys run an offense or a defense and kind of like, this doesn't work. It's not good. I don't know why it doesn't work. I've seen, again, Bill Moore is the name of the guy I coach with at Westfield. Him watching, we're running a play. I've seen him sit there and stare into the line and just pick up something like that. And that little tiny tweak, a foot stepping here, or, an arm there, makes the play work or kills the play. So my advice would be to really get with somebody that knows what they're doing and absorb it. It's old school coaching, you kind of like with the internet now, a lot of guys are picking up systems and kind of like moving forward. Old school used to be coach with somebody, you learn from them. That's kind of what you do. But there's a happy medium there where you can pick up some new stuff, but at the same time, you really should get with somebody who knows what they're doing and kind of absorb yourself or immerse yourself in their system.
Yeah. And for a lot of the audience that's watching today, a lot of the guys are younger coaches, and something that I always talk about is just being a sponge and trying to learn as much as you possibly can from the people that are more experienced, because chances are for somebody who might be like in their early 20s just getting started off, who is coaching with somebody who's been doing it for a lot of years, like chances are they've already seen a certain situation and can kind of help you coach through those situations. So, great advice there, and I'm sure you can attest to that as well.
Yes, and that reminds me, experience, there's no substitute. It's one of those cliches. I was, one of those guys, just a new coach, and I thought I knew better than everybody. And, I learned pretty quick. At this point, I've been coaching coming up on probably 25 years or so. I'll be the first one to say, I don't know anything about that. And that's as counterintuitive as that sounds, probably when I knew that I knew football was when I was able to say in a room, I don't know anything about that. A lot of guys have that kind of insecurity where they're sitting in a room and their coach is talking about something and they're like, just button their lip. And yeah, you should shut up and keep your mouth shut and kind of learn. But don't pretend like you know what you're talking about if you don't. So when you can actually say in a room and with confidence and not thinking everyone else is going to think you're an idiot by saying, I don't know anything about that. That's when you're kind of like at a point where you're open enough to learning that you can be better. In 20 something years, there's still stuff I see that I go, I don't know anything about that offense. I don't know what technique you're talking about. And things change. There's always hot terms that come out, and, safety's triggering. And so every year you'll go to a clinic and you'll pick up on something like, hey, that's the hot term this year. When RPOs came in, I remember one year I was with Coach Benassi at a clinic and everybody's talking about how the safeties were triggering and you kept hearing this. And I'm like, that's this year's hot phrase. And another reason why when you're coaching ball, you can say, I don't know, is because football is one of the only sports I know of like this and I had this long discussion with a coach from a school called Endicott at one of the clinics I was at years ago. One of the only sports where there's no universal syllabus of terminology. One man's arrow route is another guy's slide, is another guy's flat route. If a guy says, yeah, I'm running the dagger concept, that's fairly universal, but there's a lot of these concepts that have 4 different names.
Right.
And I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about when the coach had gone to a new school and he was trying to put in his offense, and they had a concept, say, called it paint. And, of course, everyone goes, why do you call it paint? He's like, well, we just had the offices painted. And when we came in the room, we said, hey, let's just call it paint. Just, kind of like, what do you want to call this thing? So football is one of those sports where it's like, you're trying to like make it make sense to you. So you're trying to attach a meaning to certain words. And quite frankly, it could be something the coach was looking at and said, hey, tree.
Yeah.
There's no universal knowledge base where everything has a name. So if you're in a room and you don't understand something, you can ask a question, because I guarantee you there are coaches that have been coaching 30, 40 years that will say, I don't know what's an arrow route. Oh, we call that a flag. Okay. All right. I get it now. And I guess that's kind of what makes coaching fun. And it makes it a little bit more I think some guys think it makes it a little bit more of a secret society where you can kind of like get into the X's and O's and be blah, 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 blah. And there's people who have never coached who just look at you like you're talking Latin. They don't understand what you're saying. And I guess some guys like that. I had a moment this year where I was calling a play, and I think I said like scatter to, and it was the complete, I'm sure you've seen the clip with John Gruden and Chris Sims.
Oh yeah.
When he's trying to get him to call the play, and he's like, no, F left, looky, calling it was kind of like that. And I realized like, I got to back off a little bit. I'm talking to a freshman in high school, and I'm trying to get him to call a play and can it to another play, and so
Yeah.
I don't care how long you've been coaching. There's guys. Here's another story. I was lucky enough. My sister had a credit card. It was a Patriots credit card, and she won, or she got enough points to get a visit with Bill Belichick at the stadium. And I'm a huge Patriots fan. Obviously, you can probably tell.
Oh yeah.
And I went with my brother-in-law and met Coach Belichick, and it's very very disarming. He's wearing jeans and like sandals, and it's just a little weird to be standing, face to face with a guy that I had a lot of respect for and had never seen except on TV. And he asked me what I did. I talked to him. Of course, I brought up the option. I said, what do you know about the veer? And he said, nothing. Except that was a year that they had brought Buffalo drafted. I can't remember his name. Miami had just beaten on them with the Wildcat. And so Miami drafted a quarterback. I don't know if it was the quarterback from West Virginia. 2 or 3 teams had drafted quarterbacks specifically to run the Wildcat. And his kind of like comment was, I don't know anything about it, but I'll probably have to learn because we're going to probably see it this year because there's so many of these, mobile Wildcat type quarterbacks in the division now. But for a guy like that's been coaching for 40 years to say, I don't know anything about that tells you something. Like, it's okay to admit you don't know everything.
Right. No, that's great advice. And what I've heard is like the best coaches out there, those are the guys that are always going to be flexible and going to be willing to learn new things. And
Yes.
and just like you were talking about for the past, 10 minutes, like that's a key trait that anybody can have, whether it be coaching or playing or business, just continuously having that learning and open mindset. So any last words, Coach, that you want to share with the audience today before we hop off?
I guess the theme I kind of have rolled into is just be willing to learn, be open, be willing to learn. I'm right now in the process of kind of retooling the offense that we ran last year. Last year, we started out like Springfield College, running double slot, flex bone, triple option offense. And we had some injuries on the O-line. We weren't doing that well. And I kind of like took a step back, and I know that offense inside out, but it wasn't working for us. We were getting beaten up. So I learned from a few other coaches, and we installed a split back veer out of the short shotgun, and that worked for us. And I had to relearn a lot of stuff, and dive path and alignments, but it made a difference. And now I'm kind of like, I'd always been a guy who didn't believe in throwing the football. I going through high school, my head coach, I remember we played in a Super Bowl, and it was 4th and 15, I think, in the Super Bowl, and he called power, and we got the first down. That's just how I've been brought up. And that's how I was. And as a coach, I remember going to a Super Bowl out here on I think it was 07. And I was watching later on TV, they do the TV broadcasts, and I was watching it, and they said, Westfield hasn't called a forward pass in 4 games. And I was like, and I was the coordinator. I didn't even know. I just didn't know that. And,
Wow.
We had won all those games and rolled on offense. And so I have been kind of taking pride in the fact that we don't throw the football. Some guys, I see a stat line, it says, 50 rushes, 0 for 1 passing, and you win the game. I'm like, that's awesome. Now I'm kind of taking a step back, and I'm learning more pass game, because the school I'm at now, Westfield around here is known for the big offensive linemen. I don't know why. They just always had these big offensive linemen. And I was able to do that. I was able to get into 2 tights and just punch people in the face. This school, it's not going to happen like that. So I got to learn to throw the football a little bit. So that's, humbling myself and learning more pass game stuff. So always be willing to learn, be a sponge, like you said, and don't ever think you've learned everything, because I don't care how long you've been coaching this game. You're going to hear something go, I don't know what that is.
Yes, sir. Well, Coach, thank you again for sharing today. It was a pleasure talking with you, and best of luck this offseason.